Today, we are diving into one of Japan's most shocking and unsolved tragedies. A case that remains open even now, 26 years after the crime. I'm serious. If you're squeamish, you might want to click off this video, because the details are truly horrifying. For everyone else staying, welcome back to the channel where we explore real crimes and strange phenomena. If that's your thing, hit subscribe. And let's get into today's story. New Year's in Japan, like everywhere else, is the biggest holiday. A time for families to come together, celebrate, and ring in a new beginning. On December 30th, 2000, the Miyazawa family was spending their day like many others in Tokyo, getting ready to welcome the new year. The morning started with the parents waking up the kids. Yasuko made a light breakfast, and they all sat together at the table, talking about their plans for the year ahead. Later, the whole family went out for some last-minute shopping, walking through the busy streets decked out with holiday lights, popping into stores to grab everything they needed for their New Year's feast. They were laughing, picking out gifts, just soaking in that holiday vibe. Back home, Yasuko cooked lunch and they all shared another warm meal together. After that, they unpacked their bags and started decorating. The kids were super excited, hanging up garlands and ornaments. That evening, the family called some relatives to chat about their plans to celebrate. Together the next day, the head of the family, 44-year-old Mikio, worked in marketing, and as you can guess, New Year's is one of the busiest times. So he was checking his home computer, on and off throughout the day to answer any work emails. While he was doing that, his wife Yasuko was playing with their daughter, Nina, and her younger brother, Ray. After dinner, they spent the evening watching TV and then finally went to bed. Then, around 11:30 p.m., when all four were asleep in their beds, a dark figure slowly emerged from the depths of the park that bordered the back of their house. This person silently stepped out from the tree line and onto the family's property. Even though it's pretty normal in Japan to leave doors unlocked, it's a safe country. The front door was actually closed that day, so the intruder climbed a tree, reached over, and opened a bathroom window on the second floor. Once inside, he headed straight to the nearest bedroom where Ray was sleeping and strangled the little boy with his bare hands. This horrific act probably made a lot of noise, which woke up Mikio and sent him running upstairs from the first floor. The fight between Mikio and the attacker was short and brutal. The attacker was armed with a Japanese santoku kitchen knife, which he used to stab the father of two in the head over and over, so hard that the tip of the blade broke off and got stuck deep in his victim's skull. Before he died, Mikio managed to wound the killer a little, but he was no match for him. The man was just too strong. The killer then went back downstairs to the first floor, where, driven by some kind of animal rage, he attacked Mikio's already lifeless body again, stabbing and slashing with a broken knife like he wanted to erase any memory of his victim. Finally done, he went to the kitchen, grabbed a different knife, and went back upstairs. There, he turned his attack on Yasuko and her daughter. His assault wasn't just cruel, it was something demonic. It was like all his fury and hatred was aimed directly at them. Every blow was more savage than the last, clearly meant to cause maximum suffering before finally ending their lives. Investigators would later figure out that he spent way more time and effort on Yasuko and Nina, and their deaths were far more horrific than the father's and sons. You'd think, mission accomplished, right? But the killer wasn't done. He went outside and cut the phone line, probably to stop anyone from calling for help if, by some chance, someone was still alive or hiding inside. He knew a phone was their lifeline, and he took it away. But after that, the killer didn't rush to escape. It was like he lost all sense of time. For the next few hours, he just wandered aimlessly around the house, doing a bunch of almost absurdly normal things, ignoring the bodies of his four victims. He casually bandaged his own wounds. He didn't try to clean up the blood or hide the used bandages. He just left them right on the floor, like he wanted the police to find everything exactly as he left it. Then he went to the kitchen, made himself some tea, like he was just a regular guest. He got some melon slices from the fridge and enjoyed this little snack. Amidst the horror he'd just created, later, he lay down on one of the couches in the living room for a nap. He briefly turned on Mikio's computer, used the toilet, and didn't flush, and then, in the early hours of New Year's Day, he finally left. The next morning, Yasuko's mother tried to call her daughter to finalize their New Year's plans. The call didn't go through. Remember, the lines were cut. Worried, she went to their house and rang the doorbell. No answer. No movement, no sound from inside, feeling a deep sense of dread. She used her key to get in. A horrifying scene immediately met her eyes. At the bottom of the stairs leading to the second floor lay the body of Mikio, the 40-year-old family man. The mother started calling out for her family. Only silence answered. She went upstairs and saw the bodies of her daughter, Yasuko, 40, and her granddaughter, Nina, just 8 years old. In her horror, she touched their bodies, hoping this was all just a nightmare that would end. In a complete daze, she went to the next room, the one right next to where Yasuko and Nina were, and found Ray lying in his bed. He had been strangled. This made investigators believe he was the killer's first victim. The police quickly found that the killer had left the broken murder weapon at the scene, covered in both his and his victim's blood. He also, inexplicably, left a small bag on the floor, which contained some markers and a small amount of sand. All these items were collected for forensic analysis, in hopes of identifying the killer, while clothing fibers provided some clues. It quickly became clear that finding him wouldn't be easy. DNA and fingerprints were found and analyzed, but they didn't match anyone in Japan's national databases. Looking at the crime scene photos, spread out on his desk in his dimly lit office, lead investigator Takashi Tsuchida felt focused but also pierced by deep frustration. A week had already passed since the elderly woman found her family brutally murdered in their own home, and the investigation still hadn't yielded any real results. Someone had managed to do all this and vanish without leaving a trail clear enough to catch him. As the head of the police station, Tsuchida was inevitably at the center of this high-profile case, under orders to solve it fast. At first glance, it seemed simple. Personal items and evidence left behind promised a clue to his identity. But the DNA, like I said, didn't match anything on file. Becoming an almost insurmountable wall, the situation needed a different approach. So his team turned to witness statements and surveillance camera footage. But they were moving in the dark here, too. The killer didn't show up on any of the cameras around the house, and witnesses couldn't provide anything useful. He was a cold, calculating person who avoided every possible trap, like he knew their every move in advance. This only increased the anxiety and the feeling that they were dealing with someone far more dangerous than your average criminal. Analysis showed the killer was a man of mixed ancestry, likely with one parent from Southern Europe. His blood type was A based on the nature of the wounds. He was probably right-hand, with a slim build and about 170 centimeters, 5 feet 7 inches tall. An analysis of the force used in the murders suggested an age range between 15 and 35, but beyond that, nothing more concrete could be confirmed. Pretty strange, right? I also found info that the police discovered over 1,000 pieces of evidence at the scene: prints, footprints, clothing, the Santoka knife, blood, and a bunch of the killer's biological material like hair, etc. And it still led nowhere. Sorry to those who were eating, but the police even took his feces for analysis. Remember, he didn't flush. Analysis showed that at some point before the murders, the man had eaten a simple meal of green beans and sesame seeds. It was later confirmed that both the kitchen knife used in the murders and the clothes the killer wore were bought in Kanagawa Prefecture, about an hour away. Over time, police learned that only 130 copies of the sweater the killer wore were ever made and sold. This was great news. Just by checking that, they could narrow things down. One of the strangest pieces of evidence connected to the killer's identity. You won't believe it, was a detailed analysis of the sand found in that bag he left. Sand? Really? Well, scientists figured out it was sand from the Nevada desert in California, specifically from the area around Edwards Air Force Base since the murders. Tons of different theories have been floated about who could be responsible for this senseless killing of a young, seemingly ordinary family. These theories range in plausibility, but unfortunately, there's so little solid evidence that none seems much more believable than the others. The most common theory is that the family was the victim of a stalker, maybe someone obsessed, driven by pathological jealousy or a twisted attachment to one of the family members. The obvious difference in the level of violence against the women in the family compared to the men led some psychologists to conclude the killer might have harbored a deep hatred for women, possibly from some personal tragedy or unfulfilled feelings. Maybe it was a man obsessed with Yasuko, or a family acquaintance who felt he'd been wronged or humiliated in the past. There's also information that Yasuko's face was covered with a futon quilt, and according to some Japanese articles about the case, it's customary after death to cover only the faces of people you know. Still, the investigation into all possible suspects and interviews with friends and relatives didn't yield any significant results, so these theories remain just guesses. If the Miyazawa family was ever involved in some past conflict, it hasn't been discovered yet. Or maybe it has. One theory claims the tragedy was caused by the open space behind the Miyazawa house. There were rumors that authorities offered the family up to 100 million yen to move so they could tear down the house and expand the park. Also, according to some witnesses, a few weeks before his death, Mikio had gotten into an argument with a group of young people at a local skate park. So it's possible that conflict led to some street gang deciding to get revenge. The Miyazawa home was just a few minutes' walk from a train station, which suggested the criminal might have been traveling the country using Japan's extensive rail network. Since the 80s, Japan saw an increase in migration from neighboring Asian countries, as well as a rise in the number of people who lost their homes. The 90s brought a serious economic crisis. Many lost their jobs and couldn't get back to a normal life. Some started living a nomadic lifestyle, rejecting a society they felt had betrayed them. Maybe the killer was one of these people, and the Miyazawa house was chosen at random, just the first one he saw coming out of the park. Then, there's the sand, identified as material from the Nevada desert near Edwards Air Force Base. This suggests the killer could have been connected to the American military stationed in Japan at the time. And unfortunately, history shows that US military personnel have been involved in high-profile crimes in Japan before, leading to public outrage and demands for their withdrawal. This theory could also explain the mixed DNA profile found at the scene, and now it's already the start of 2026, and the investigation is technically still ongoing. In Japan, the statute of limitations for crimes punishable by death used to be 25 years. That's the fate of the Miyazawa family. Take care of yourselves, friends. I'd be happy to see you on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe.